A very warm welcome to Sarah Parks, who is a parenting coach. And during the course of this, we'll talk about other things that she's done over time. But I've known you for a little while now, and we sort of have connections in different kinds of ways. And I thought it would just be lovely to get a bit of insight into your journey to being a parenting coach. But I'd love to start with knowing what you were like as a girl.
What was I like as a girl? Very chatty. Very chatty and creative and into lots of things. Yeah. I really liked drama. I liked kind of acting and dancing and things like that. So yeah.
Do you like school?
I loved school. So my earliest memory of school was playing in like a Wendy House type place and just really enjoying it. But you know, my mum tells the story of how I ran away to school. So because my sister's 4 years older than me, or 3.5 years, and it must have been a bit boring at home, I think, because I wanted to go and do what she was doing. So I kept turning up at school. It wasn't in my sister's class, like in the age appropriate class, you know, I'd just go with the ones that looked the same as me, you know, same kind of size as me. And so they let me start school a bit early because yeah, so that's, and I did enjoy school. And to be honest, what I enjoyed about school was the social aspect of school. Like I love being with other people. I'm very sociable and I get energy from conversation, from being with others, from the buzz of life and yeah. So that was the part of school that I enjoyed, and that's why I enjoyed school. I don't think it was because of school per se, although, you know, I quite like learning things, I suppose. But yeah, I suppose it was that it was active, and you know, there were obviously things about it I didn't like, but it was mostly being with my friends, you know, being with other people.
And what was puberty like for you as you got older and started to change? Was that an okay time or a tricky time?
Yeah, I think I found it well, because we've been talking a little bit before this conversation, you know, a little bit about periods and things. And when I started mine at age 11, I didn't feel very supported around that, you know, and I'd had the talk at school and my parents didn't really talk about it. My mum didn't really talk about it or do any kind of prep. And then when I started, she just gave me some money to go to the pharmacy to get something myself on my own. So that was really not great. Like, don't do that.
You're thrown in the deep end.
Totally in the deep end and unsupported. Yeah. So it was a bit rubbish, really. Although, you know, what's really interesting, I remember, like, I could have so patented pads with wings, totally. And I don't know who has done that. I don't know who, but yeah, it's so interesting. I remember trying to get those things to stick and stay where you needed them to stay. And I remember trying sellotape, really uncomfortable. Sellotape does not work. It's really uncomfortable. Does not work. But I bet I'm not alone in having tried that many years ago. Like, you know, I suppose girls today won't, things have improved a lot since the early, you know, the 1980s. So yeah, but yes, I remember trying all sorts of ways of trying to get, you know, a pad to stay on your pants kind of thing, where you needed it to stay in position. So yeah, but also I think I was quite slim, and but I, you know, developed quite large breasts, which I found quite yeah, a bit quite uncomfortable really, and you know, felt self-conscious really about them. So I wore, you know, little big baggy tops and all of that kind of thing. So and I just remember thinking, are they ever going to stop growing, you know, slimming things? And just at the time as well, for me, I think you didn't get larger size bra, like anything over a B, which just seems ridiculous now if you think of the bra sizes that you can get now, right? Like getting a C or a D cup what seemed to be a bit of a thing, like loads of A cups, loads of B cups, a few C cups, very rarely a D cup. Anything above that did not exist. How crazy is that? It just, there was no catering for different sizes really.
So
and
you're
so
having to find your own way with it all, it sounds
with
like.
all of it, yeah, find my own way with it all.
And did that continue as you sort of go on to leaving school? And what did you start out with your first job?
It's interesting because my daughter was saying the other day, you've done everything, you do so many things. What you worked hard at a cafe. Yeah, like most people have, to be fair, especially if they've gone into the theatre or TV or anything like that. At some point you probably worked in a bar to pay your bills, you know, or a restaurant or a cafe. So it's quite funny. I don't think they quite realize how hand in hand those professions tend to be, you know. But anyway, what was my first job? Do you ask me what my first job was?
Yeah, what was your first? Because I know you've done all sorts of sort of interesting things over the years.
So are you meaning as an adult, or because like it's interesting because I started doing things when I was like, my first job was in a cafe. Like I worked in cafes, although that's not entirely true. Like I grew up in a bed and breakfast, in a B&B. So I did have to help out. I did have to work there. You know, I did have to make beds, help with the cleaning, serve breakfasts, all kinds of stuff, you know. So technically that was probably my first working or job type stuff. But I don't think it counts. I don't think it counts if you're not getting paid, hey?
No. No. I wonder whether, you know, while you were at school, you had a dream of what you wanted to be. You said that you really enjoyed drama.
Yeah, well, I knew I wanted to be an actor from quite a young age. And so when I was a teenager, for me, it was like, am I going to become an actor or a dancer? Those were my two choices that I was kind of choosing between, really, and deciding on, you know, around the kind of age of 14, sort of 14, 15. That's what I was sort of thinking. And I decided that I wanted to do acting more than dance. So that's what I did. Yeah. So I went and studied small scale touring theatre, and then went into doing that. I did a lot of small scale touring, and more small to medium scale touring, but worked in theatre for years. Yeah.
And am I right in thinking you were on CBBS?
Yeah. So I did quite a lot of theatre for young people, and you know, it's so interesting. You know, within industries, there are parts of industries where people, I suppose, look down on different aspects of, or you know, think of certain parts of an industry as being lesser than others, and children's theatre is one of those, I would say.
But it's not as seen as being as serious or
as demanding, which is ridiculous, because it's kind of the opposite. Because kids won't sit and listen, and if your show is rubbish, they'll let you know. Whereas adults will sit politely and clap and go, oh, wasn't that awful? You know, kids won't do that. If your show's rubbish, you'll know, because you lose your audience, right? You lose your audience's attention. So if anything, it's one of those crazy myths, you know, that that it's somehow going to be easier when it's the opposite, really. It's probably more demanding and more challenging. And, you know, and I was really passionate about really good quality theatre for young people, you know. And, you know, their first experience of theatre might have been watching a show I was in, you know, which is amazing. Yeah.
And so how does that then follow through to the parenting coaching that you're doing today? Sort of what happened, what changed?
So yeah, so I became a parent. I think that's what changed, really. Well, so I did I was a professional actor for many years, a jobbing actor, and I did theatre, and then I decided, oh, actually I quite fancy doing some TV. So I did some TV, and when I did that, I stopped doing so much theatre, because you can't really do touring theatre. Is really quite all encompassing, actually, and you might be on the road for 3 months or 6 months or a year or whatever, you know. And so I, you know, took a conscious decision to stop doing that, and did some TV, and corporate work went very well alongside that. And, you know, with using drama within corporate settings and for training around, you know, I don't know, having conversations or communication skills, because, you know, a big part of theatre is communication, right? So that was kind of a natural progression into communication. And I love personal development, so I was really into kind of my own personal development alongside that. So it was really a natural progression, really, for me to go into and I also always ran workshops, you know, whether I was working with young people right through to working with adults, working with communities. So being a facilitator was part of what I did, you know, as well. So it was kind of a natural progression to kind of be looking at communication with my own children, and then through that helping other people with their communication with their children. So that's kind of how that progressed, really. And coaching, I fell in love with kind of coaching 20 years ago, and so I used coaching techniques within my facilitation and within the work that I did when I did directing, because I directed pieces and shows and things like that as well. I very much used a coaching kind of style. It was very much about, you know, because coaching is about helping the other person find the answers from within themselves, or find, and for me, you know, directing is about helping the other person bring out the performance from themselves, you know. So it's all about drawing that out. So
and my third question is always about cycles and sort of how they fit in, or how they affect work and life. And I was thinking particularly, you know, what links all the things that you've done is communication, and that real passion to communicate. So I wonder how cycles have affected communication.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, there are cycles in our lives, right? There's and I think if you think of the maid, mother, crone cycles of within life, you know, I was in my maiden cycle, you know, in my younger years, and then I came into the kind of mothering cycle, which I'm in, and will be transitioning into that crone. You know, I'm kind of starting to dip my toe in, starting to straddle into crone, really. Wise woman, wise warrior goddess, whatever I want to call myself. But, you know, it is, I'm very much in that mothering phase, but, you know, my children are getting older, and so our lives are cyclical, and we don't, we can't see that when we're young. We think we're always going to want to do what we're doing, but actually there are seasons in our lives as well, for different things. And I had a passion and a drive to perform when I was younger. Like it was part of my life force energy to be a performer, to perform, to be on stage, to be doing all of that. And that was hugely important for me. And that's not the same now. It stopped being so important to me, and I have been in a phase of really supporting others, of nurturing my children and nurturing other parents, and nurturing others. And I really came into that phase as soon as I came into parenthood, thinking back, actually. So thank you for the question. I mean, I didn't have an easy introduction into parenthood, because the role that I had was being the parent of being a bereaved parent. And so an invisible parent, like parent with no child. And that's not an easy role to have. It's a pretty hard role to have. And a friend of mine asked me to direct a show that she was wanting to create at that time. And it was amazing. And it was such an amazing, and it was a poetry performance piece with she's a performance poet, and it was with a musician as well. And it was such a beautiful trinity that we formed, for bringing this piece into the world and birthing this, and the creation that happened between this trinity of the three of us was incredible. And I think that was really that really marked this for me, this really stepping into coming out of that, my need to perform, and being in this more enabling of others role, very much. Yeah. So, and who knows, I might come into a performing phase again. I don't know whether I ever will or not, but I'm still very much in that helping others bring their gifts to the world, and helping parents to be the kind of parents they really want to be, and and break cycles that have been passed on to them, to empower them really to do that.
I was thinking how exciting it is, because certainly in my grandparents' generation, you would have a job for life. One of my grandpas was in the sort of telecom service, and he spent his whole career there. And actually, isn't it wonderful now that we can move from different things as we grow as a people, as we get interested in different things, as we have families and find new interests, that we can change and experience other things. I think that's a really wonderful development.
Yeah, I think it is too. And I think part of that whole job for life thing isn't there so much anymore, but also the awareness that we get to choose is there. Whereas I don't think people felt they had a choice once they'd chosen. Like with your grandfather, I expect he felt, well, I've got to stay here because that's what I chose, whether I still want to be doing it or not. There's like an expectation to continue and to have the security and la 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 la. Yeah. But when there is no security anymore, then it provides that, in a way can be difficult, but also it provides some freedom.
Yeah.
And
the other question I always ask is to ask about a transformational moment. So it could be, any point during your life, but is there one that really stands out to you?
A transformational moment. I mean, I did just talk about that transition. Transformational moment. I mean, there's been so many in my life, but right now I can't think of one that really stands out. Like, what is the transformational moment that wants to be shared today? You know, I think becoming a mother was, yeah, a hugely transformational moment and phase of life for me. You know, it's I think that's what really ignited the legacy work for me, you know. And I think having the experience of having, you know, a stillborn child, my first child as well, which, yeah, it's his birthday on Friday, his 16th birthday on Friday, so you know, it's around this time very much. And yeah, that I think when that kind of experience really has given, I think, my daughter so many gifts, because there are choices that we've made, and you know, because we want to be with them, we want to be there for them, we want to, so this consciously thinking about or choosing how we want to live our lives, what kind of parents we want to be, what kind of life we want to have, what kind of life we want our children to have. And most of that has been about having us be present, you know, be there for them as a priority, and everything else is built around that. So yeah, so that's massively been hugely important. And as they get older, they won't need us to be there for them in the same kind of way. But, and I think having that, and I'm sure a lot of people will have felt, who are my kind of age, that they didn't have very present parents, because most people didn't in those, you know, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, showing my age.
Yeah, with different styles of parenting.
It's different styles, absolutely. And so yeah, definitely different styles, and that we get to choose, you know, we get to choose how we want to do it, and I very much help people navigate that, because you know, I talk about conscious parenting, gentle parenting approaches, respectful parenting approaches, you know, unconditional parenting, positive parenting, mindful parenting, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same stuff, really. It's you know, it's and being able to do that and can be challenging, you know, because we've got all the old programming, all the old stories, all the ways that we were parented, and it's not always easy, you know, because actually part of that is having children, you know, wanting our children to be their own person and free thinking and confident and vibrant, and it's not hard to raise a child like that. I mean, it's not easy to raise a child like that always, because they're not just really compliant, right? Because they've got their own opinions and they've got their own way of being. So it's not necessarily easy, and we don't get taught the tools. And if you haven't learned them from our parents, and we aren't learning them anywhere else, then how do you do it? And that's where I come in. That's how I help people.
And I was just thinking, sometimes you don't get the complete picture until you become a parent yourself.
Totally.
It's very hard, I think, to understand maybe some of the decisions that your parents made until you're a parent, and you've got that 24-hour-a-day responsibility, and you understand the different pressures, and you see it in a whole new light.
Definitely. Yeah. So that, I think, yeah, that's definitely been a huge transformation for me, you know. Stepping into that role is huge. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, what advice would you give to a young person that's just sort of setting out on their life, maybe trying to make decisions about what they want to take for their A levels, or what kind of job they might think about doing in the future?
I suppose, two things. Go for what you love. Do what you want to do, what lights you up, what you love, and don't worry about getting it wrong, because it can change. Like, it can feel like it's the be all and end all, making the right decision. Like, you can't get it wrong. Like, you can just choose again. Because there's no job for life, there's no thing for life, and there's different pathways to the same end destination. There isn't just one. It's not just A levels that is the pathway, right? There's many pathways to where you want to get to, so it doesn't really matter. So if given it doesn't matter, right, you may as well do what you love. You may as well have fun. You may as well enjoy it. And actually, the more you enjoy it, the more fun you have, the easier it'll be anyway. Like, it's allowed to be easy. There's a complete lie that we're spun that we've got to work hard. And it's a tricky one, because actually one of the things I tell my daughters all the time, they're like, oh, how do you do that? Well, actually, it is about repetition and doing it again and again. So there is that. But with something you love, that's joyful. When I used to dance, it's joyful.
Yeah, rather than it being a slog. It's
like, it doesn't have to be a slog. I think that is the lie, that it's got to be hard. Did that whole no pain, no gain, like, run a mile from that. And they, because if there's no joy in it, then it's not worth doing. So there's a few things there, isn't there, that I suppose I've mentioned. If there's no joy there, it's not worth doing. That is so crucial, is that you love what you're doing. And if you don't know what that is, it doesn't matter. Like, you can't get it wrong. You just can't get it wrong.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing your experiences. And I wondered whether you wanted to dedicate the episode to your son for his 16th birthday.
Oh, that's so nice. Oh gosh, you're gonna make me cry.
Oh, what's his name?
His name's Buena.
Buena. Oh,
yeah.
So belated.
Thank you. That's so lovely.
Yeah. So where can people find you?
Well, I hang out on Facebook, and I hang out on Instagram, and I have a website, and I hang out in LinkedIn is my new thing, is where I'm hanging out. So I'm going to be doing more on LinkedIn.
People
so you can find me in different places. So Sarah Parks with an E, Parkes. And on Instagram, it's How to Talk So Kids Will Listen UK. You can find me there in the different places, and I can give you my link so people can find me. But yeah,
well, it's been wonderful to talk to you, and I'll also put a link. We're going to do a talk about sort of puberty, about how to talk to your kids about sex and all those sorts of things. So do join us for that also. We'll get into
definitely
the nitty-gritty of not having a really awkward talk, but just making it much more a meaningful process for you and your children.
Yes. Yeah, how to talk about those things, and the bodies and the periods and sex and that stuff. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.